You may wind up in a Supermax as a prisoner for a variety of reasons. A Supermax is a facility designed specifically to house numerous prisoners for extended periods of time in solitary confinement. Slivers that enter through a tiny, thin window are the only source of natural lighting, and that the only people you'll converse with will be in your nightmares or dreams. U.S. Penitentiary Florence, one of the toughest prisons in the world, is 80 Max, also known as 80X. This Colorado prison, also referred to as the Alcatraz of the Rockies, is located close to the Rocky Mountains. Among the most constrictive and difficult to survive is its dreaded H unit, or Special Security Unit. There have been at least 6 prison suicides since 80X first opened in 1984. No one has ever managed to break out of this jail. You would spend nearly 23 hours a day in your cell in this unusual administrative maximum security prison. You would only be permitted to go outside during recreation hours. A couple of guards will show up at your cell door once every 30 days to start taking you to a review. Your wrists are fastened with handcuffs, and a collar is attached to you via a cuff port, a small opening in the door. They tell you to get down on your knees on the cell's concrete floor and turn your back on the door. They shackle your ankles with leg chains, as well as pull you to one's feet as soon as the door opens. You'll be standing there just a few feet away from some of the most infamous and violent individuals alive in 80X. This includes El Chapo, the infamous Mexican cartel leader, and Barry Mills, the Aryan Brotherhood's leader. With these vile neighbors, perhaps solitary confinement doesn't sound so bad. However, it's best to keep to yourself whenever you're given the opportunity for any brief form of social interaction. Giving the guards, as well as authorities, information about other prisoners is the one stuff you must absolutely never do while you're incarcerated. You're led by the security guards down a long, white tile-lined corridor and through 2 large security gates made of heavy steel. One guard holds the person's shoulder and cuffed wrists. The leash is held by the other. They lead you into a hearing room, which really is stark but still disorienting given the even starker environment you're currently in. Windows, chairs, and people. Several prison administrators are seated at a conference table that is larger than that of the cell you just left in cozy office chairs with laptops open in front of them. You have to shuffle one's feet because there is no other way to move while wearing leg shackles and plastic slippers on the carpet. You fear falling to your face if you misstep. Inmates at Supermax prisons are notorious for being held in solitary confinement that borders on torture. According to studies, confinement-induced stress can cause the brain's memory and emotion-controlling regions to shrink. You might feel more purposeful if you grow in your spirituality. You can learn a new religion, grow in your devotion, or draw strength from other faiths to help you deal with life behind bars. Your area of expertise narrows when you're in a Supermax, also known as Intensive Management Unit, IMU in Washington State. Your closet-sized cell is the only thing that exists. The rest of IMU, the outside world, and even the prison itself don't really matter. Within the confines of that cell, you fight to survive your isolation. Avoiding stress is among the greatest things you can do in order to remain sane in the Supermax. Given the circumstances, I know it seems impossible, but you can create stress-relieving techniques. Developing and maintaining a routine could work. Suja Graham, who was put on trial for murder in San Quentin prison after being wrongfully convicted, found comfort in routine. He exercised every day at 5 in the morning. Graham then scrubbed himself clean. He meditated in the afternoon. That sustained him up until his 1981 release and acquittal. To survive your time in IMU relatively unscathed, you must prepare yourself. The same is true for instructions on how to use the wheel or the rack. Neither are available. Either you gradually acquire the skill, or you don't. There are many prisoners who are unable or unwilling to adapt to their surroundings. They're the ones who can constantly be heard screaming and banging on the metal door of a cell as loudly as they can. They might be the ones you never hear. The constant roar of insanity is the IMU's pulse. It resonates through the cell's concrete walls, the soles of one's barefoot, your bones, and your teeth, permeating every area of the prison. There is never a moment without the jarring, screaming slam of steel doors. Guards in riot gear entering cells to extract prisoners can be heard doing so while brandishing batons and taser shock shields. Every 30 minutes, a guard patrols the block, striking every wall, door, and cuff port with a large rubber mallet to make sure everything is secure. You observe the rear as though someone else were there, chained, and on a leash, just like in the cell. You only respond when administrators ask you to. You allow your expression to be lifeless, permeating the few words you do say. You cannot afford to have any stake in the outcome since you have no authority over it, and those who do possess control do so without any remorse. This is due to their misunderstanding of what they're doing being aided by the impersonal, passive facade of prolonged solitary confinement. They don't actually do anything to you. In their opinion, on the wheel, they're not breaking your bones. On the rack, they're not pulling or popping your tendons and sinews. You have simply been placed within an architecture. You are responsible for your actions inside that cell, not them. To endure the expertise of the cell, you must store some sort of hope, intention, or significance inside of yourself. It feels like there is nothing else to do because it is so agonizing. Life is immolated in prison, and IMU greatly intensifies this process. Under a convex lens that concentrates the sun's conflagrating force, you're an ant. When a prisoner commits suicide close to your cell, you can see the guards removing the body and carting it away through the tiny window slat of the cell door. Whatever drives you forward, you hold onto it more tightly. Constrictions remain in place for everyone in that location, including you. The dead inmate's cell also doesn't remain empty for very long. Your anger serves as a defense mechanism against the depths of suicidal thoughts. You might as well do so because in IMU, anger always rises on its own. You feel angry because you realize how much malice and cunning planning it must have required to create the facility's various components. Your focus wanders when you're angry. It serves as a bulwark that you can lean against. It serves as an anchor and a steadfast resolve to endure. But you can't let your rage become your only driving force. Anger can become out of control when everything inside of you has run out and all that's left is anger. And what occurs to you is more severe than what would occur if you committed suicide. When those prisoners enter the general populace, you recognize them. They're short-lived. They come back to IMU for irrational, frequently unprovoked violent acts that are both outrageous and incomprehensible to those who haven't been subjected to protracted confinement inside a Supermax. You won't have the life you imagined in a Supermax prison, but that doesn't mean you should stop dreaming. 7 years of Michael Joel's 40 years in jail were spent in solitary. He used to spend hours passing the time by creating intricate mental images of himself living in a vibrant, alternate universe in which he could enjoy being in public and interacting with others. Certain brain regions that support mental activities, abstract thought, and motor control may be stimulated by mental imagery. You might even have real-seeming dreams. People who are incarcerated frequently suffer from mental illness. Former prisoners in the US make up about 73% of women and 55% of men go through this. Solitary confinement only makes these circumstances worse. Insanity symptoms like hallucinations are reported by 75% of all isolated inmates. To pass the time, some prisoners indulge in junk food, but avoid doing that. While eating comfort food may temporarily take your mind off your problems, the sugar-induced endorphins will only make any mental illness symptoms you already have worse. Since they're obtained from whole foods, your mineral and vitamin levels may be depleted. You should try to maintain good health, according to seasoned prisoners. You escaped from a Supermax jail. You were moved to a facility with less stringent rules because of how well you behaved. But it's packed, and it's simple to get in trouble with the wrong people. Some claim that what you would do during your first 24 hours throughout prison may determine whether you survive. Is that true? Comment down your thoughts about the survival and don't forget to like and subscribe.